Welcome to MMO Grinder Backtrack, where I'll take a look at games I've reviewed previously to check out what's new. Today in February of 2017, I'll be revisiting World of Warcraft, a game I said I would never go back to unless Blizzard fulfilled one condition, but I'll get into that later. This video was requested to me and funded by Ciann, who provided me with both the upgrade and the game time back in August? Jesus, I was dragging my feet on this one. I am so sorry about that, bro. So, now with the fervor of Legion cooldown, and I'm an armful of months late with this video, let's see if anyone still cares about what I have to say about what was once my favorite MMO. I have not been back to WoW in a long time, so people still calling me a WoW fanboy and comments just seem aggressively ignorant now. Yeah, I know this is supposed to be about Legion, but since I haven't played since the start of Cataclysm, I've got a ton of catching up to do. Since I dropped out of Warcraft right after my review in episode 20, which occurred near the beginning of Cataclysm, I didn't really get to follow a lot of the main story beats. Most interesting to me, however, was the apparent personality switch of Varian and Jaina. I'm Alliance scum, so this is just the kind of thing I'd notice. For those not in the know, Varian came onto the scene during the start of Wrath of the Lich King, the Alliance's long-captive king with his shonen anime hair screaming "Argle Bargle me hate horde" and tearing apart any potential at peace that Jaina was working toward. Varian started gaining a bit more respect when he learned to calm the hell down, showing hints of general understanding towards the end of Wrath and the final parts of Cata, just in time for Theramore to get destroyed by a rogue faction led by Garrosh, causing the once peacemongering Jaina Proudmoore to start shouting "Argle Bargle me hate horde." To paraphrase a line from Wrath of the Lich King, the Alliance must always have an "Argle Bargle me hate horde." Why are people upset that Metzen left now? Yeah, I know I simplified the hell out of all of that, but I still don't buy the nuances. When the Dreadlord meme makes more sense, I think there's a base story issue there. Fight me IRL. The first expansion that released since Cata was something I wasn't really fond of, Mists of Pandaria. No issue with the Pandaran race or the new playable Monk class. I found those all interesting ideas and dynamics, especially with the Pandaran able to choose to be Alliance or Horde after starting their initial quest. What I didn't like was the everything else. The aesthetic, the story, the environment. Sorry, maybe I just played far too many East Asian WoW knockoffs, so I sure as hell didn't want to play through Blizzard's knockoff of East Asian MMOs. Asta probably ruined this for me. There just wasn't enough evolution in the game for Pandaria to hold my interest at all, even though I did my best to power through the expansion and its bafflingly weird dungeons. I almost used the level boost. Almost. However, Pandaria did add one of the greatest ridiculous distractions ever added to World of Warcraft. I think half the reason I took so long getting through Pandaria was that I found this Pokemon-styled side game far more interesting. It's a far less involved version of Pokemon, but allows you to more or less travel through the world again using this new battle system to level and head through the stages, with a trainer NPC serving as your boss for that area. Still, it's mostly distraction. After I very thankfully reached a high enough level to get out of the Pandaria quests and start Warlords of Draenor, it was a pretty rough start. There were plenty of shifts to the game's presentation, from more cinematic ways, read corny, that some story quests would carry out, like offering up an almost Borderlands-styled titled freeze frame when introducing a character. The second and most hyped change to the presentation was the tweaking and upgrade of the character models, using a bit more style and polygons to— Oh god, Ciann, what the hell did they do to your face? I guess this is why I create my characters outside of this game now. I like that the characters have that more lively vibe in general, but plenty of outfits and weapons in the game didn't get a decent upgrade in the least, with hundreds of armor pieces showing off very low-res textures still, and the human character redesign definitely got the short end of the stick here. I wasn't quite a fan of how Warlord started out. It came across like one of those things that just tried too hard to be epic, and put you into the story in a situation that really felt like you didn't need to be there. Most annoyingly would be any time the story would pair me up with Khadgar, as while I'd take a good amount of time to take out the enemies in the area, Khadgar would just run through it casting instant multi-target arcane bolts that one-shot everything nearby. Most begrudgingly, an area where you're trapped in an arena and tasked to take out 100 enemies. Khadgar stands in the middle casting a full area blizzard that kills everything anyway, without you having to do any damage. I stood in the middle dancing while the event just tired itself out before I was able to continue. I spent the entire time on stream shouting, "Why am I even here?" before the game stopped trying to be cool and just let me go adventure as normal. In fact, despite the reputation people had for Warlords of Draenor, I warmed up to this expansion far more than the previous one, and the zones and quests, even the dungeons, were far more interesting to play, and the general feeling of playing World of Warcraft years ago started to come back. WoW's fans, however, not so much. The odd garrison update, similar to Star Trek Online's duty officer missions, wasn't just a little Facebook-style side game that kept you logging in each day to upkeep with those missions and your crafting areas. It was apparently meant to replace the endgame as a lengthy holding pattern, and once what is now WoW's major player base, the hardcore raiders, realized there was nothing to hardcore raid, they left in droves, causing Blizzard's subscription numbers to drop off the fastest they'd ever had. So much so, from that point on, Blizzard immediately announced two things. One, that they would no longer be reporting those subscription numbers, and two, that a new expansion would be debuting in the next year, breaking their original pattern of a new X-Pack every 2 years. So the announcement of the expansion pack so soon after the reported sub drop-off seemed less like Blizzard granting players new content at a quicker pace, and more like a desperate attempt at a saving throw. Which brings me up to the only reason most anyone is looking at this game anymore, the latest expansion, Legion. So here's my thoughts on it and everything that has changed, as well as what the game has to offer. First things first, that promise I made back in, 2012, where I said I would never look at World of Warcraft again unless it fulfilled one condition? Well, it happened. And it wasn't worth it. It's funny how many people tell me that Transmog is a perfectly fine system, because it's seriously the worst cosmetic system I've seen in many games that don't lock that stuff behind a cash shop. If it's seriously been that long since you've played, Transmog, or Transmogrification, was a feature included during Cataclysm, which you could finally customize the look of your character's armor by choosing to have pieces look like other pieces. Finally, I could wear my character's roleplay outfit while still being combat viable. Except I couldn't. See, Transmog limited you heavily, as you couldn't use the armor piece unless it was placed into void storage, and then chosen and set from a specific NPC. It added an unnecessary time and money sink for something done 50 times better in Lotro, Ion, and Rift before it. Add to this the fact that you couldn't add an item to your void storage unless it was soulbound, locking me out of dozens of specific outfit appearances, including the Valentine's outfit, as well as restricting me into cosmetic looks only wearable by my class. It made me feel like this was just a complete disappointment. Well, some of these things were fixed, as now items that you collect are recorded to all your characters across the server, though the soulbound locks and armor class locks are still in place. Void storage now relegates itself to being an overpriced bank, and all hide equipment options, including the formerly options toggled hide helm and hide cloak, will now force you to visit the Transmog NPC each time you get a new piece of equipment in those slots. Thanks for granting me my wish by making things still completely awful. Not to lead in with a sour note, as the new expansion starts out pretty interesting and intense, and sure doesn't mess around. Once you've chosen to participate in new content by using your account boost or bringing up at least one character to level 98, you'll go on the mandatory setup quest and then participate in the opening quest, a public event instance that carries you through the Assault of Broken Isles. I'll just say, shit goes down. A few times playing that section on stream, I uttered the phrase, "Well, hope nobody was too attached to that character." And they weren't just false dramatic killings of cannon fodder McNobody. Seriously lore-ingrained stuff happens here, and despite most of the internet probably knowing about it by now, I'd still not dare put spoilers for anybody who doesn't. Blizzard definitely wants to make you feel the weight of the threat you're facing, but with the levels of power creep and lore that have practically reached the point of parody, predicted in an old WoW comic called Hammer of Grammar, let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if Still Beating Heart of Jaina became a lootable item within the next few expansions. This also comes in the form of legacy weapons or artifact weapons, major lore and quest-related weaponry that replaces a talent tree, by adding a different kind of talent tree. Once you have one, after performing a frankly pretty cool selection of quests to earn them, you're locked into that talent specialization while it's equipped. Instead of earning new weapons, you slot items and unlock features using points to make that weapon stronger. You can earn the rest at later levels, but at least you no longer have to worry about weapon drops, for better or worse. What bugs me about this, in a this is cool but kinda dumb when you really think about it way, is that there is serious lore behind a few of these weapons. Your shaman can wield the Doom Hammer, your hunter can use Sylvanas' original bow, Thasdora, my paladin character, Leotania, wields the goddamned Ashbringer, and the levels of ridiculous involved with that statement, knowing how and why I created the character in the first place, is ludicrous. I remember doing the Caverns of Time dungeon with Ciann, finding that hidden area to witness the formation of the Ashbringer, thinking it was a really cool Easter egg and lore moment, and now Leah has it! These are the kind of stories and claims that would have had you laughed out of roleplay communities for being a godmodder, and now they're a standard gameplay feature. And yet part of me thinks this is still kind of neat. It's stupid that about 50,000 Ashbringers are running around strapped to players' backs, but neat. I don't know. Another interesting, possibly overdue feature was a manner to make questing feel less linear and theme parky with the ability to choose which area you want to quest in without level restriction. When you finally go through the lore fluff of Legion, get your uber weapon and settle into your new base, a war map lets you find out the situation in several areas throughout the continent. What's nice about this is you can choose to see other areas from what the expansions would normally just path you through, even if each new area has a fairly linear, planned out path for you to take in those quests. You're at least given some semblance of choice. And the fact that all levels in these areas are now synced to your level, similar to the recent update to Elder Scrolls Online, means that you won't ever be too overpowered or underpowered to take a quest in the area. Take that as good or bad, depending on your viewpoint. Finally, the most remarkable feature, among many, was the addition of the new hero class, a concept not seen since Wrath of the Lich King added the Death Knight. Unlike the Death Knight, which was available to all races, the new Demon Hunter class will need to roll as a Night Elf or a Blood Elf. Each Demon Hunter will follow a story path about how they were disciples of Illidan during the Burning Crusade days. A story questline will take you back to the assault on the Black Temple, as Illidan send you and your kin off to recover a relic. The entire questline really backs the power and feel of the Demon Hunter, as you absorb the abilities of slain demons as a means to explain and unlock your various powers. The class is a speed and damage-based class, with plenty of cool powers and moves to use, like Demon Transformation, Quick Dashes, and even a double jump gliding ability. Following some lore cutscenes and Illidan's defeat, Maiev captures all of you, and fast forward to the future, she releases you when she feels the threat of the Legion far outweighs her hatred of the Demon Hunters. It's definitely a fun class to play, and one I would have liked to stick around with more, but I'm pretty dedicated to my mage. Regardless of all of that, I'm still done playing World of Warcraft. Oh, don't get me wrong, this was the closest I came to starting the game back up again. The changes, drastic as they may be, really felt interesting, and didn't leave me feeling nearly as out of place or empty as I did playing back in 2012 for the review. The stories had my attention, the legacy weapon system felt interesting, and I was curious to see what was to come so much that I re-upped my subscription for another 2 months just to get more time in. But I really can't be asked to keep playing it. Probably the worst thing about doing this show. I don't really get to play the things I enjoy, and even if I did find Legion a much more interesting expansion than the past few, it's just not enough to keep me paying and playing, or set aside the time for it anymore. Though, I'm a bit curious about how it's all doing now, seeing as it took me long enough to get this out, and I've not heard much since the post-honeymoon fervor. I'll be sure to check back with this game and others in more episodes of MMO Grinder Backtrack. Oh yeah, the Horde vs. Alliance rivalry is still as forced as ever. RP servers are just normal servers with stricter naming conventions, and players still only seem to care about raiding for those epics. Some things never change.